1, 2, 3. 3 count 4.
Hello everyone, I'm Be Better Gamer and welcome to Be Better Gamer Wrestling, the channel dedicated to wrestling video games fueled by my love, passion, and obsession for them. Thank you for clicking on this video where I will be sharing with you my top 10 favorite wrestlers to play as in WWF WrestleMania 2000 on the N64. Can you believe it's been 20 years since WrestleMania 2000 was released? That's right, it was released on October 12th, 1999, during a time in WWE known as WWF back then, when they were at the height of their popularity in a period that would come to be known as the Attitude Era. WrestleMania 2000 is part of my favorite series of wrestling games on the N64, developed by Aki Corporation, published by THQ. It was the follow-up to WCW NWO Revenge. THQ obtained the rights to publish WWF games after their previous contract with WCW expired, and Aki improved and defined their wrestling engine they had been using for their WCW games Revenge, WCW vs. NWO World Tour, as well as their Japanese-only Virtual Wrestling 64. WrestleMania 2000 would be followed by Virtual Wrestling 2 and WWF No Mercy in the following year. I put hundreds, if not thousands of hours back in the day playing WrestleMania 2000 and still play it today, along with the rest of the Aki games. When it comes to selecting someone to play as, I focus less on who my favorite wrestlers were at the time and more on who I think are really fun to play as in the game. This is not a ranked list, by the way. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I'm not saying these are the best wrestlers to play as or have the best stats or whatever. These are the 10 that I find myself always picking more than the rest of the roster when I pick up the controller to play either against a computer or with friends. I would love to hear who are your favorite wrestlers to play as and what some of your other fondest memories are of WrestleMania 2000 in the comments below. I have several WrestleMania 2000 calls on my channel along with other videos on the Aki N64 wrestling game, so be sure to check them out and subscribe if you want to see more. I have other videos I'm planning on making to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of WrestleMania 2000 this month, so with that, here are my 10 favorite wrestlers to play as in WrestleMania 2000. Big Show is one of 3 WrestleMania 2000 wrestlers who appeared in the previous Aki N64 games, and the only one to have appeared in all 3. Virtual Wrestling 64, World Tour, and Revenge, but he would not appear in Virtual Wrestling 2 and most infamously be removed from WWF No Mercy. This is my favorite version of Big Show's moveset across the 4 games, although the changes are pretty minor from his appearances in the WCW games as The Giant. Big Show is a great example of someone who I wasn't necessarily crazy about at the time, even when he jumped ship to WWF, but his moveset is very fun to play as, especially as one of the better heavyweight powerhouses in the game. When you want to slowly stalk your opponent and just throw them all around the ring, Big Show is a great choice. He's got great strong attacks, great power grapples, but really the star move here is the showstopper, or giant choke slam, or Big Show choke slam, whatever you want to call it. The animation is great for this move. I love the way he grabs the opponent by the throat and looks around before he lifts them up and swings them around for the big choke slam. It's always satisfying to deliver, and knowing that he wouldn't be included in No Mercy unless you make him, which I did check that video on my channel, I always love the opportunity to get to play as the Big Show. Another WCW NWO Revenge alumni, what are the chances? Throughout the series, movesets didn't change much between wrestlers who appeared in different games, and Jericho was easily one of my favorite wrestlers to play as in Revenge, so it's no surprise I love playing as him in WrestleMania 2000. In Revenge, he was part of the Cruiserweight lineup and retains a lot of the fast-paced striking and high-flying moves. The springboard dropkick, always a favorite of mine in this game. I love doing the 1-2 combo of slamming my opponent's head into the turnbuckle and then following it up with the springboard dropkick. Doing it with Jericho though, I immediately go into his down taunt, which just embodies the charismatic arrogance of Jericho. In fact, that's what makes a lot of his moveset appealing, are his taunts. The classic raising his arms and realizing the crowd boos him, so he goes, wait, hold up. Even the iconic flex pose pin, it's always fun to follow up his moves with his taunts. Most of his moveset is carried over from Revenge, but he did get a new front special, the triple powerbomb pin. In reality, Jericho had started doing the triple powerbomb upon his arrival in WWF, but No Mercy would have a better version of that move when he releases after the last powerbomb instead of into a pin. But I only ever win my Jericho matches with the Lion Tamer, and yes, it was still called the Lion Tamer in this game. In WrestleMania 2000, the computer is really good at getting the rope break, something they wouldn't improve until Virtual Wrestling 2 and No Mercy. So you have to really adjust to get a good angle with the Lion Tamer to avoid a rope break, but it's one of my favorite submission moves of all time, and the animation when your opponent submits is so satisfying. I never get tired of playing as Jericho in WrestleMania 2000 or watching him wrestle for that matter, as he's still going strong to this day and still one of my favorite wrestlers in game and out of game. Okay, here's a pick that a few people might not have seen coming, but if you are a fan of the WWF Aki games, you probably already know that DLo Brown has a really fun moveset to play as in both. He's got the running calf kick, which is one of my favorite running moves in the game, a signature of D. Malenko from Revenge. DLo helps fill that void. He also does the Texas Cloverleaf too. Coincidence? I think not. He's got the running Liger Bomb too if you want to go coast to coast in the ring. A great way to finish opponents off, but really, choosing how you are going to win is part of the fun, because he's got two great finishing moves. His front special is the Sky High, which I just love how it looks. The float over, then the slam. It's just perfect. Always fun to win with that, but my favorite way is with the lowdown, the frog splash move that DLo borrowed from SEMA. I wish there were more frog splash variants in the Aki games, but the lowdown is easily my favorite one. It's a little bit more challenging to win with the lowdown as DLo, since he can only do it from the top rope when his special meter is active. Normally, he'll do a moonsault, which is also a great move to have. His jumping distance is set to long, not longest, which means he's not going to go into the pin from, say, the Frankensteiner setup from the turnbuckle, which is unfortunate because that's a great combo maneuver. SEMA can do that in Virtual Wrestling too. But nonetheless, if you pull it off, it's very rewarding. Underappreciated in the game as well as real life, DLo's moveset is the real deal. I mean, how could you not want to play as Gangrel with that amazing entrance and theme song? It's the main reason why I pick him. Honestly, there's nothing to write home about his moveset. It's pretty generic, but at least he has the Impaler as his front special. No, the main reason I pick him is for that entrance. I am not even joking. See, WrestleMania 2000 was the first wrestling game part of the Aki series that used actual music. Revenge had full entrances, but everyone came out to generic music. Virtual Wrestling 2 has full entrances, but only real music for a few of the All Japan wrestlers. And the entrances are very bare bones in that game compared to the elaborate WWF style entrances. No Mercy, on the other hand, did not have full entrances. So out of the whole series, we only get to appreciate an entrance of this magnitude here. Gangrel is technically in WWF No Mercy, not as a member of the main roster, but his face, picture, and attire is in the game. I made him on my channel just like how I made the Big Show. His music is not in the game though, and you can walk to the ring with the chalice, but you don't get the full effect of him rising from underneath the Titantron with the fire and all the red lights, and then him spitting the blood from the chalice. Gangrel is very unique in that way. Playing as him allows me to relive one of my favorite gimmicks of the Attitude Era in the game, even though it didn't last as long as I would have hoped in real life. Bonus, make sure you change Edge and Christian's music and Titantron to the Brood as well, so you can get the full effect of the Brood when they come out as a team. If you were not aware of Virtual Wrestling 64 back in the day, you'd be forgiven to think that this was Ken Shamrock's debut in the Aki series of wrestling games on the N64, but Shamrock was a playable character in Virtual Wrestling 64 based on his MMA career in Japan and work in UFC. He's probably my favorite technical wrestler to use in this game, and what I mean by that is someone who uses a lot of submissions and ground grapples. When I want to bend and break my opponent, I pick Shamrock. On the ground, he's got the leg lock, the arm bar. Strong grapple, he has the rolling leg lock, which is a great setup for his finisher. His front special is the fisherman suplex, which could be useful to win, but really I want to make my opponents tap. And even though his back special is a very powerful flipping armbar, obviously we are going to win with the ankle lock, the move Shamrock made infamous in WWE before Kurt Angle adopted it for his own. Man, imagine if Shamrock stayed in WWE longer. Imagine if he was there when Kurt Angle was at his peak as well. That's another reason why I kind of like playing as Shamrock. Over the years, you can really see how he was ahead of the time when he was first in WWE. I mean, look how closely MMA is associated with not just WWE, obviously, but all of pro wrestling these days. So many wrestlers have adopted MMA styles and moves into their personas, and Shamrock was one of the real deal, legit MMA fighters to cross over into wrestling and have mainstream success in both worlds. I think his appearance in WrestleMania 2000 is a bittersweet reflection of Shamrock's career in WWF. Right place, wrong time. HBK is another character that doesn't really have a lot going on moveset wise, but has those one or two moves that only he does and no one else, which is surprising because you think they could have done a little bit more to showcase how well-rounded a performer HBK is, especially at this time in his career. His grapple moves are pretty standard or fair. He does have the flying elbow drop, but really it's about doing those HBK taunts as you get your meter up for the real reason anyone would want to play as Shawn Michaels, the sweet chin music. Even though the super kick that Glacier does in Revenge, which is the same one that Steven Richards does in No Mercy, is my favorite of the two super kick specials, I still thoroughly enjoy delivering the sweet chin music every time I play WrestleMania 2000. Bonus points for tuning up the band with the corner taunt. Even though it doesn't activate your special, you have to taunt again, which is kind of lame and kills the momentum, but you still follow it up with the sweet chin music, and it's oh so sweet, no pun intended. Also, HBK is unlocked at the end of Road to WrestleMania, so if you are using him, it's kind of like a badge that shows you went through the very long road to WrestleMania to get him, and honestly, I think it's worth it to get to play as Mr. WrestleMania, who was so essential in the beginnings of the Attitude Era. The star of WrestleMania 2000, probably everyone's favorite wrestler to play as at the time of the game's release. I actually didn't spend much time with Austin in the beginning. The first few years of my history of the game, I rarely touched Austin because I thought his moveset was unfulfilling. But as time has gone on, and my appreciation for the Aki games have become deeper and more nuanced, such has my appreciation for Stone Cold Steve Austin in this game. I believe he has the most wrestler-specific animations added into the game from Aki's previous efforts, and really, when you play as Stone Cold, you want to play the greatest hits. From his elbow drop, where he's supposed to be giving the double birds, his Thez press with punches, to one of my personal favorite animations, the mud hose stomping in the corner. Playing as Austin is like reliving all the countless times he opened up the can of whoop ass on his opponents. His middle finger taunt is very fast, and sometimes when you play against human opponents, some people will try to abuse that and raise their meter quickly, but it's also a good strategy if you find the computer giving you a difficult time and you need to quickly swing the momentum back into your favor. Once you get that special, it's time to give a hell yeah, because the Stone Cold Stunner is one of the best finishers in and out of the game. There's two things that make the Stunner even better in this game. If you are quick enough, you can deliver up to 3 stunners in succession, which has a 99% chance victory rate. I looked it up, don't worry. But really, the way I like to win is countering a kick when the special is activated, because then you can deliver the unique stunner animation where Austin grabs the leg, talks some trash, spins the opponent around, and delivers a stunner. This is most definitely modeled after the time he did it to HBK at WrestleMania 14, as they show it in the intro, and even though it's situational, oh boy is it worth it. It's one of my favorite things in the game in general, and that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. For a brief few months in 1999, it looked like Test was destined to be a major star in WWF. His feud with Shane McMahon, an on-screen relationship with Stephanie, seemed like Test was going to have a seat at the table for a long time with the McMahons and other main event stars, but alas, that was never meant to be. Which is a shame, really, because his moveset is really good in WrestleMania 2000. I like playing as Test because there's a lot of different options available. He's got some good strong striking moves that cover distance, such as the big boot and strong drop kick. Speaking of big boot, I love the running jumping Yakuza kick. It just looks so vicious and fits perfectly for someone the size of Test. He's also got the big running left lariat, which is equally as satisfying. Some solid strong grapples back and front. The highlight probably being the Test quote-unquote neck breaker, but come on, that should be the Canyon neck breaker. Revenge fans know what I'm talking about. And 2 great options for finishers. It's a 50-50 toss up when I play as Test, because sometimes I want to win with the diving powerbomb front special, sometimes I want to use the pump handle slam back special. So yeah, I really dig playing as Test. And another example of a solid, well-rounded, powerful character to use in the game that maybe eclipses his real-life in-ring highlights.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? I mean, how can you not want to play as The Rock if only just to recite all his catchphrases as you beat your opponents up? Much like Steve Austin, there isn't a whole lot going on moveset wise for The Rock beyond the custom moves that only The Rock did and no one else. From his signature foot stomp to Rock Punch, which is great for eliminating people in Royal Rumbles. Really, it's just building up that special meter to layeth the smackdown on your opponent's Rudy Poo candy ass and delivering the rock bottom. But you don't need your special to deliver the always entertaining but extremely underpowered People's Elbow. Part of the fun of doing the People's Elbow in the game isn't just watching the fantastic animation taught for it, but the minor challenge of setting it up properly and not messing it up. There are many times when I maybe press the hit button a little too soon and completely waste the setup to the elbow, making myself look like a complete jabroni. But when you get to do it right, it's very rewarding and a great way to win the match. If you can win with it, that is. Sometimes, even after delivering a rock bottom, following up with the People's Elbow is not a guaranteed victory. In fact, I think it might actually hurt your chances a little to win. But whatever. Nonetheless, making sure I take a trip and visit The SmackDown Hotel, every time I fire up WrestleMania 2000, is a must. If you smell what The Rock is cooking. You can't see it, but I'm doing the eyebrow. I'm doing the eyebrow, even though you can't see it. And last but certainly not least is The Undertaker. I know that I said I was keeping this list in alphabetical order, but I do think it's ironic that I close with Taker, because if I had to choose one character to play as, one character that probably is my favorite one in the game to use, like if I needed to bring someone to a WrestleMania 2000 tournament, it would have to be The Undertaker, which is kind of unique, I think, to WrestleMania 2000 for me, because across the other Aki games, my favorite characters are mostly filled with junior heavyweight style wrestlers who have a lot of flips and high flying moves. And maybe the reason why I love playing as Taker so much is because he has a big, powerful moveset, but is complemented with a few high flying and fast movement moves that makes him extremely versatile to use. His strong striking punch is really fast, another big boot to close the distance much like Tess, and his running flying clothesline is always a blast to use. He also has the running big boot, which is one of my favorite ways to knock an opponent off the apron, and once you get him off the apron, it's time to fly with the dead man, which is so amazing to see in game, but also knowing that Taker himself would occasionally take to the sky, which I'm still always in awe of. I mean, anytime you see a 6'10" human being flying out of the ring, it's always usually impressive, but even more so because it's The Undertaker. He's got one of the best powerhouse movesets in the game too, and even though there's no last ride in this series yet, you still have access to a snap powerbomb. Can't play as Taker without going old school, which in this game would be called The Undertaker Walk on the Rope. And 1 year later, in No Mercy, they started calling it old school, which is kind of funny to think about. Flash forward to 2019 and Taker is still wrestling, but just 1 year later, from 1999, he became old school. Of course, I always try to win with the chokeslam to tombstone pile driver, finisher combo, and then the unique Taker pin. There's no better way to close out a match, and your opponent will forever rest in peace. There you have it, my 10 favorite wrestlers to play as in WrestleMania 2000. I can't believe it's been 20 years. I won't be surprised if I'm still loading this game up on my N64 20 years from now. It's still fun as ever. Did anyone on my list surprise you? Let me know in the comments below who your favorite wrestlers to use in the game are. Check out my other videos on my channel for WrestleMania 2000, as well as the other N64 Aki games. But if you like this style of video and you want to see me do more like this with the other N64 Aki wrestling games or other wrestling games in general, please let me know in the comments and on social media at BeBetterGamer. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep watching all the wrestling.